Even as we grieve, we give thanks for this most faithful life.
King Charles learned the full extent of what had happened through a combination of direct briefings from his most trusted advisors and through the kind of organic information flow that exists in any institution where enough people are aware enough of enough things to make complete secrecy impossible. His reaction, by the accounts of those who know him well, was not one of dramatic anger. Charles is not a man given to dramatic anger. He is a man given to deep and private emotional processing, to long periods of quiet reflection, and to eventual decisions that, once made, are implemented with a firmness that his more publicly visible emotional sensitivity sometimes causes observers to underestimate. He made his decision, and it was the kind of decision that changes everything. The transfer of effective authority to Prince William has been structured carefully to avoid the constitutional complications that a formal regency or an official transfer of royal powers would involve. Charles remains king. He will continue to perform the constitutional functions of the monarchy, the state openings of Parliament, the audiences with the Prime Minister, the formal duties that belong to the sovereign and cannot be delegated without specific legal mechanisms. But in terms of the strategic direction of the institution, the decisions about how the monarchy presents itself and positions itself, the management of the royal family as an entity with a public role and a public responsibility, Charles has made it unmistakably clear that William's judgment now takes precedence. This is not without historical precedent in spirit, though its specific form is unusual. There have been periods across British royal history when a reigning monarch has effectively elevated a trusted heir to a position of shared governance, not through formal constitutional mechanisms but through the practical delegation of authority that any institution's leader can choose to exercise. What makes this moment different is the speed with which it has happened and the specific circumstances that have driven it. Charles did not plan to hand significant authority to William this soon. Events forced his hand. William has been preparing for kingship his entire adult life, just as his father did before him. But where Charles's preparation was marked by long decades of sometimes frustrated waiting, William's has been more actively shaped by the institutional lessons of his father's reign and by the particular education and royal responsibility that Charles has made a point of providing. William knows things about the mechanics of the monarchy that Charles did not know at his age. He has been brought into conversations, briefed on decisions, and included in strategic discussions with a deliberateness that reflects both Charles's genuine affection for his son and his clear-eyed recognition that the institution's future depends on William being ready when the time comes. That time has come earlier than either of them expected. Those who have spoken about William's response to being handed effective authority describe a man who understood immediately what was being asked of him and why, and who accepted that responsibility without hesitation or false modesty. William has always understood what the crown requires. He has watched it require things from his father, and from his grandmother, and from the generations before them. He knows that the institution's survival depends on its ability to make the right decisions at the right moments, even when those decisions are painful, even when they cost something significant to the people involved. His first actions in exercising his new authority have been both practical and symbolic. Practically, he has moved to consolidate decision-making around a small group of trusted advisors whose loyalty is to the institution's long-term health rather than to any particular individual's immediate interests. Symbolically, he has made a series of public appearances and institutional gestures that signal continuity and stability to an observing public that is acutely sensitive to any indication that the monarchy is in difficulty. William is good at this. He has inherited from his father a genuine intelligence about institutions, and from his mother a genuine ability to read and respond to public feeling. Those two qualities combined make him particularly well suited to the task of steering the monarchy through a moment of internal crisis while maintaining the outward appearance of confident stability. Catherine's role in all of this cannot be overstated, and it would be a mistake to analyze the transfer of authority to William without understanding the extent to which Catherine is a genuine partner in what is now being built. The two of them have spent years developing a shared understanding of what they want the monarchy to become under their eventual leadership. They have been deliberate and patient and strategic in ways that have not always been visible to the public, but that have been clearly understood by those inside the institution who watch these things carefully. Catherine's cancer diagnosis in 2024 and her recovery across that year and into 2025 changed her in ways that those close to her describe as profound. She emerged from that experience with a clarity of purpose and a personal authority that had not been as fully present before. She had faced something genuinely terrifying, had navigated it with a grace and an honesty that moved the public deeply, and had come back to her public role with the particular confidence of someone who has looked at serious mortality and decided, with full awareness of the choice, to invest whatever time they have in things that genuinely matter. She is not simply William's supportive spouse in the traditional royal sense. She is a full partner in the leadership of an institution that both of them understand will require everything they have to carry forward successfully. The combination of William's institutional intelligence and Catherine's public connection creates something that the monarchy has not had in precisely this form for a very long time. A future reign that commands genuine public trust not through the managed projection of an image, but through the accumulated evidence of real character demonstrated under real pressure over many years. The approval ratings that consistently place William and Catherine at the top of royal popularity are not manufactured. They are the result of two people who have shown the public who they are, repeatedly and honestly, across circumstances that would have exposed inauthenticity instantly if it existed. Those who have followed Camilla's journey from the deeply unpopular figure of the early 2000s to a queen consort who had begun to achieve a degree of grudging public acceptance know that the road has been extraordinarily difficult. She endured years of public anger that was, in many of its expressions, genuinely vicious. She was blamed, not without reason, for pain inflicted on a woman the world loved. She persisted through that blame with a stoicism that, whatever one's views on her conduct, represented a genuine form of resilience. And she eventually reached a position that seemed, until recently, to be more stable than many had predicted she would achieve. The eruption of the current scandal has destabilized everything she had built. The institutional response, which has been to reduce her effective role in the palace's decision-making while maintaining the formal dignity of her title, is one that those who understand palace dynamics describe as a carefully managed emotion that preserves the appearance of respect while fundamentally altering the substance of her position. It is, in the language of institutions rather than of individuals, a containment strategy. The palace is not in a position to remove her title or to publicly humiliate the woman who is, whatever the current difficulties, the king's wife. But it can and has ensured that the damage she is capable of causing to the institution's interests is limited by limiting her access to the levers of influence. Camilla's own response to this situation has not been made publicly visible in any direct way, which is itself a form of information for those who know how to read royal behavior. When members of the royal family are comfortable and secure, they appear. They engage. They project the easy confidence of people who know their position is solid. When they are not comfortable, they withdraw. They become less visible. Their public appearances become more managed and more carefully controlled. Camilla's recent public profile has reflected exactly this kind of strategic withdrawal, and the people who watch these things closely have not missed it. The broader implications of what Charles has done extend well beyond the immediate management of the current crisis. By transferring effective authority to William at this moment, Charles is making a statement about the future of the institution that will shape how the monarchy is understood and operated for decades to come. He is saying, in the clearest possible institutional language, that the era of the current reign is already, in the most meaningful sense, giving way to the next one. He is saying that the values and the priorities and the judgments that will define the monarchy going forward are William's values and priorities and judgments, and that the institution needs to begin aligning itself with that reality now rather than waiting for the formal moment of transition. This is a form of institutional courage that deserves recognition. It would have been easier for Charles to manage the Camilla scandal quietly, to deploy the palace's formidable machinery of information control and hope that the crisis would subside without requiring any structural response. He chose not to do that. He chose instead to use the crisis as the occasion for transition that the institution needed to make eventually anyway, and he made it on his terms and on his timeline rather than waiting for circumstances to force a more chaotic version of the same reckoning. It is, in a way, the most kingly thing he could have done. Not the most emotionally comfortable thing. Not the thing that protected all the relationships and interests he has spent years carefully tending. But the thing that put the institution's needs ahead of his own preferences, which is ultimately what the crown requires of the people who wear it. What William will do with the authority he has been handed is the question that now defines everything. He has the institutional intelligence to understand what is required. He has the public trust to make decisions that will be respected rather than reflexively questioned. He has Catherine beside him as a genuine partner in a way that the monarchy's history shows is rare and valuable beyond measure. He has the support of a king who, whatever the personal complications of the current moment, genuinely wants his son to succeed and has structured the current transition to give William the best possible foundation from which to lead. He also has the memory of his mother. Diana's influence on William has been documented and discussed at length across the decades since her death, but it bears particular relevance to this moment. Diana understood intuitively that the monarchy's survival in the modern world depended on its ability to be genuinely human, genuinely accessible, genuinely present in the lives of the people it existed to serve. She paid a terrible price for that understanding in an institution that was not ready for it. William grew up watching his mother fight for a vision of royal purpose that the system around her resisted at every turn, and he grew up watching what that resistance cost her. He has carried that education with him. It has shaped his understanding of what needs to be different and why. The transfer of authority that Charles has initiated is, at its deepest level, a transfer of vision as much as a transfer of operational control. It is Charles saying to his son and to the institution they both serve that the time has come to build the monarchy that Diana imagined was possible, the monarchy that William and Catherine have been quietly preparing to lead for the better part of 2 decades. Moments when the carefully maintained facade of unity and stability develops cracks that no amount of official communication can plaster over. The British monarchy has survived for more than 1,000 years precisely because it has understood, generation after generation, when to hold firm and when to adapt, when to defend its current shape, and when to reshape itself around the demands of a changing world. It has outlasted revolutions and scandals and wars and the collapse of empires. It has buried secrets and managed crises and emerged, battered but intact, from episodes that would have destroyed lesser institutions. But what is happening inside Buckingham Palace right now represents something different in kind from the ordinary management of royal difficulty. This is not a scandal that can be quietly absorbed. This is not a controversy that will fade with the next news cycle. What is unfolding is a fundamental realignment. The reason he has done so is directly connected to a scandal involving Queen Camilla that the palace can no longer contain. This is the story of how it happened, why it happened, and what it means for the future of the monarchy that hundreds of millions of power within the British royal family, a transfer of authority so significant and so deliberate that those closest to the crown are describing it in terms that have no modern precedent. King Charles III has handed final authority to his son Prince William. Aeons of people around the world still watch with a combination of fascination, affection, and occasionally profound discomfort. To understand the full significance of what Charles has done, you have to understand what it has cost him to do it. Charles waited longer than any heir in British history to become king. He was born into the expectation of the crown in 1948, and he wore it for the first time in May 2023 at the age of 74. 74 years of preparation. 74 years of watching, learning, serving, advocating, and waiting. His entire adult life was constructed around the understanding that one day he would be king, and that when that day came, he would be ready to lead the institution he had studied and served and sometimes struggled with across 7 decades of extraordinary personal and public experience. He came to the throne carrying genuine vision. His lifelong advocacy for environmental causes, his deep engagement with architecture and urban planning, his passionate championing of traditional craftsmanship and sustainable agriculture, his commitment to interfaith dialogue, and to the idea of a monarchy that served not just the Church of England but the full diversity of a modern British society. These were not casual interests. They were the substance of a man who had spent his adult life thinking seriously about what a monarchy in the 21st century needed to be and what it needed to offer. He had plans. He had intentions. He had a clear sense of the legacy he wanted to build in whatever time his reign gave him. And now, earlier than anyone expected and under circumstances that have caused genuine pain to everyone involved, he is transferring the effective authority of that reign to his son. Not because he is abdicating, not because his health has deteriorated beyond the point of function, but because the scandal surrounding Camilla has created a situation that threatens the institutional stability he has spent his entire life working to protect, and because he has concluded, with a kind of clear-eyed pragmatism that has always been one of his less celebrated but most important qualities, that William is the only person who can now lead the monarchy through what lies ahead. Roots that stretch back through years of accumulated tension, competing loyalties, and institutional decisions made under pressure that have now produced consequences no one fully anticipated. At its center is Queen Camilla, and the question of her role, her conduct of what specifically has erupted around Camilla are being managed with the kind of care and her judgment in a series of situations that palace insiders say have caused King Charles both personal anguish and profound institutional concern. The details all information control that the palace deploys in its most serious crises. Official statements have been minimal and deliberately vague. The usual royal communication strategy of saying as little as possible while projecting an image of serene continuity has been deployed at full intensity. But information has leaked. It always does when enough people inside an institution know something significant, and enough people inside Buckingham Palace know what has been happening to make total containment impossible. What has emerged from royal sources, speaking carefully and without attribution, is a picture of serious concerns about Camilla's conduct in her role as queen consort. Sources describe a pattern of behavior that has created friction with key members of the royal household, conflict with the strategic direction that Charles and his senior advisors have been pursuing, and in at least one significant instance, a decision made by Camilla that directly contradicted the king's known wishes and caused considerable damage to relationships the palace had been carefully building. The specifics of that decision have not been fully disclosed publicly, but its consequences within the palace have been described by those aware of the situation as severe. There are also reports of concerns relating to Camilla's public conduct in ways that have complicated the monarchy's carefully managed public positioning. In an era when every royal appearance is immediately dissected across social media platforms with speed and a thoroughness that the palace's communications team cannot fully manage, any misstep carries consequences that amplify rapidly and unpredictably. Camilla has, according to sources, made missteps.